Good afternoon. As you said, I'm going to talk about the virtuous cycle of skill and passion and how it can help you develop a successful career and ultimately a successful life. Before I get started in delving into that a little bit, I want to tell you how I came to be interested in this topic at a very young age. I was 9 years old. I was sitting at the kitchen table having breakfast, having a bowl of cereal. And my father walked into the kitchen and looked at me and said, "Hey kid, you think you'll ever amount to anything in life?" Well, I thought I was doing pretty good up until that point. But it was obviously a challenging question and a situation where as a kid, it's a thought that sticks with you and kind of, noodles around in your head if you're not careful for 30 or 40 years. I decided I wanted to do have a different relationship, take a different tack with my own son. So as we started to talk about careers and life tracks and what he was going to do, I gave him the advice that career counselors and well-meaning parents have given kids really for the last generation, and that was follow your passion. Do what you love to do. And as it turns out, that's pretty terrible advice. All right? Why do I say that? Well, there's been an amazing amount of research in the past few years on what I'll call the science of success, where they've studied, researchers in different domains and different fields have studied what are the commonalities between successful people? How do ultra-successful people get there? What are the traits they share? What are the similarities of experience that they have? So let's just examine this a little bit. Real quick here, who has something that they're passionate about and that they can describe the job, the dream job that goes with that? Okay, so we've got maybe 75, 100 people. Only had a couple of hands raised, all right? Don't feel bad about that. There's a study done in 2002 in Canada of 500 and some university students. They asked the students what they were passionate about. Turns out most of the students had a passion, but they tended to be hobby related, hanging out with friends, watching NFL football, watching hockey in Canada. What they found was less than 4% of these college students who are ready to go on to a career and graduate had any kind of passion that had to do with either a job or education. So here we have the first problem with follow your passion. Most of us don't have one that relates to a career or a job. All right? And this starts to get into the situation where we'll ask ourselves, well, does that mean I'm set up to be just in a dead-end job that I can't stand for the rest of my life? No, not really. Because one of the things that science has also discovered is that there are 3 psychological needs in any job that help you with motivation and passion. The first is autonomy, the feeling that you have control over your day and that your actions are important. Second one is competence, the feeling that you're good at something, you're good at what you do. The last one is relatedness, being able to interact with other people. Now, if we look at those, the first 2 are actually a result of how well you do your job. So as you do your job and as you get better, you have more autonomy. You gain more control over your career. All right? And this goes to what author and scientist Cal Newport describe as 2 different mindsets that you can approach with. There's a craftsman mindset and a passion mindset. Now, the craftsman mindset suggests that get good at what you do. Develop a rare and valuable skill that you can work and leverage into a career capital and move to greater and greater opportunities in your company. You'll get more opportunities. You'll get more opportunities outside your company, and also the opportunity even to open up your own business. The passion mindset, by contrast, talks about Let's see what I have as a feeling, and how do I, now I'll go out and look for a job that matches up exactly with that feeling. And that feeling may be different this week than it was last week. So the real key here is that it turns out passion is a side effect of mastery. Being good at what you do enhances and inflames your passion for something. And this also goes to the fact that when we have this passion and craftsman mindset, there are two different approaches to how we relate to the world. The craftsman mindset is actually focused on what you can do for the world. The passion mindset focuses on, hey, what's the world going to offer me? Now that second one should look familiar to parents here, right? Because isn't that what, along the lines of what everybody's complaint is about millennials, right? They think the world's owed to them. They feel like they're entitled, all right? Yeah, because that's what we've taught them for the last generation. All right, so I'm going to talk about a different paradigm, and this idea that you can get good at something, and it holds invariably across all kinds of different domains and different jobs. You think about Steve Jobs, you think about Kobe Bryant, you think about Warren Buffett. There's an amazing similarity of experience there, and it has to do with getting good at what you do that's right in front of you at this point. Get good at something. Get a rare and valuable skill that you can then leverage and take out to the world. Now, that sort of begs the question, how do we do that? Well, the answer, simple answer, is practice. The more scientific answer is a specific type of practice, deliberate practice, which Professor Anders Ericsson has done a tremendous amount of work on. All right? Deliberate practice is usually characterized as hard, effortful, purposeful practice, right? It's focusing on details, focusing on the skills that can make whatever it is that your craft is that you've chosen better and get you to the next level. For a musician, for example, it might be practicing scales and practicing fingering on an instrument rather than just playing your favorite song. For something I'm familiar with, basketball player, it might be time spent focusing on your feet, working on angles, as opposed to just going out and playing 5-on-5 pickup where nobody keeps score. All right? Now, maybe the best example of deliberate practice is kind of a historical one. Ben Franklin, when he was a young man, was exchanging letters with a friend of his, and they were arguing about a particular topic. His father got a hold of the letters, read the letters, and had some constructive criticism for Ben. By the way, nobody get excited. Parents have been reading your emails since the 1700s. So anyway, Ben took to heart some of the criticism. The criticism that his father had was he wasn't as eloquent as his friend in presenting his arguments. He wasn't as reasoned and organized as his friend in presenting arguments. So Ben set about to design a practice where he would become a better writer and a better orator. He went and he got a bound volume of periodicals from the most well-written periodical of his time, which I believe is called The Spectator. So say something like, today's New Yorker or Economist, right, where the writing is clearly a little bit better than just the average newspaper. So he took those articles, he picked out an article, would write down bullet points on the article, put them aside for 2 or 3 weeks, then come back to those articles, the bullet points that he had written, and try and rewrite the article, then go back and compare it to the original Spectator article. Well, and that was okay, but that wasn't quite enough. He decided that one of the things that was lacking in his capacity as a writer and orator was his vocabulary. Who has a good vocabulary? Poets. Poets need a good vocabulary because they need to be able to rhyme different words that mean different things, plus take into account the meter. So Ben Nowhead took the same bullet points, put them aside for 2 weeks, came back, wrote the article in verse, in poetry form. Then a couple weeks later, went back, wrote the poetry in prose form, and compared the article to the original article and how well he had done. That didn't really address the organizational problem. So he had one more step that he added. He took the original bullet points, put each bullet point on a separate sheet of paper, mixed up all the sheets of paper, came back a couple weeks later, reorganized the bullet points as he thought he could, reorganized, wrote those bullet points again in poetry. A couple days later, came back, wrote again in prose, and then came back to compare that to the original article and see how much he had improved. That is deliberate practice. So, I'm going to urge you guys, if you want to have a career, an exciting life, and a fulfilling life, start with where you are. Delve deep into what you are doing right now. Get good at what's in front of you and expand that. And at some point, maybe you won't have to worry about whether you'll amount to anything. You'll be too busy leading an exciting, passion-filled life. Thank you very much.